Now on WSFI 88.5 FM Catholic Radio. This is Sports and Faith.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to WSFI Catholic Radio 88.5 FM. My name is Mark Curran, and I'm your host here today. I have a show on WSFI Catholic Radio, Cross-Examination. But today we're here because we have the 17th Annual Sports Faith Hall of Fame induction ceremony coming up on June 7th, Saturday. Tickets are available. The celebrant is Bishop Thomas J. Paprocki of the Springfield Diocese. And there'll be a mass and reception afterwards and a dinner, and it's just a great evening. We're going to be honoring Nazareth football, Mount Carmel football, Loyola Academy football, Sister Stephanie Beliga, who I spoke to yesterday, and Bronco Nagurski, and we're going to be speaking to his son, Anthony Nagurski, later. But right now, representing Nazareth Academy is our good friend, Bob Esposito. He's a deacon. He was ordained in 2003. He is celebrating his 39th wedding anniversary. He has 2 girls and 2 boys, 9 grandchildren. He served at St. Peter Damian in the Chicago Archdiocese as a deacon, and at St. John the Evangelist for 9 years at St. John and 10 years at Peter Damian. He's presently serving in the Joliet Diocese at St. Walter and Roselle. Actually, that's DuPage, right, Bob?
Yeah, DuPage County.
Yeah. And he's employed in American Electric Construction Company as a vice president there. And he's involved in football ministry since 2014 at Nazareth Academy. He's also a friend of Father Ted Schmidt, who is, those of you that listen to WSFI know, Father Ted was a good friend of Angela Tomlinson, the director of Catholic Radio. And we're just so glad to have you here, Bob.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
So, Bob, you became a deacon, and I want to get into Nazareth football, and I want to get into the banquet and all that. But I'd like to hear a little bit about you and what was your upbringing, and what had you answer the call to become a deacon in the Catholic Church?
Oh, well, I think a lot has to do with my Catholic upbringing. Going to Catholic grammar schools and Catholic high school, I believe that had a firm foundation for it. But I hadn't really thought about being a deacon at all. And when I was at St. Peter Damian, I like to call my wife and I was just married, and we'd go to church. And one day I'm walking out of church, and Father Klug says, "Hey, young man," he says, we need young men like you teaching our teenagers for RCIA and catechism." And I said, "Well, I'll think about it, Father." And we walked to the parking lot, and I said to my wife, I said, got away with that, because I didn't think he knew who I was. Mm-hmm. I was a pew potato, and that's not a bad thing, but we're just going there. And
what does that mean, pew potato?
Oh, that's just kind of called ourselves that, because we'd go, you'd go to church, you needed faith and you'd grow, but you really didn't get involved.
Yeah.
But the next day,
check the box, right?
Yeah,
you went to mass on Sunday,
right? And the next morning, the director of religious education was calling my house, trying to get me in there, and I couldn't say no. And that started it. And there was.
Did you feel like you were competent to teach the faith at that point?
Yeah, actually, I felt I was. Looking back on it, I knew all the right answers, and I came across one student who kept pushing me and kept saying, why, and I started to dig into my faith, because I knew the answer, but I didn't know why. And so this young man and I developed a relationship. He's now a priest. But he pushed me to be, I like to say, to become a deacon. That's Father Hyacinth Cordell he's out in Philadelphia. He's a Dominican now. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, that's great. So you and I are similar in age, or close in age. I felt like when I went through Catholic schools, and I went to 16 years of them, only law school was a secular school. And I think that was probably the worst era to be catechized that I could possibly imagine. I don't know what they do now that well. I mean, my kids are in their 20s, but growing up in our era, that was really, really bad. So when I say, did you know the faith? Where did you learn it? Or were you just at good schools?
I think I was blessed to have a good school. But going to Weber, I think that they did a good job. And like anything, it's what you put into it, right?
Right. So yeah, Weber High School, which was on the northwest side, a big
Yeah.
Polish community went there, went defunct. I'm gonna say 25 years ago, maybe
Yeah, 1999.
1999. So that's pretty close. 26 years ago. And I went to Loyola Academy. We played Weber in football, the Red Horde. And when I was at Loyola, Tim Marshall, the big star at Weber, who went on to play at Notre Dame and what have you. But did you, for example, not until I was through with school did I start reflecting on the Eucharist being the true presence. And I just never remember having heard that once in school. Do you remember hearing it?
Other than the standard textbook, they were pushed like
Did you know that it was
Oh yeah,
okay, so I thought it was like a symbol.
yeah.
And I graduated Loyola with honors and was a really good student all through
Mhm.
school. So it's not like I could have slept through everything, but I don't remember hearing that.
You know, I don't think I've ever questioned it. Even I think probably your
Yeah.
foundation comes in grammar school more so. But
Do you think your parents probably told you more?
yeah,
But that generation of parents didn't really talk about the faith much either.
no.
I don't think I ever remember saying a Hail Mary in our house. We would say um, grace before dinner, and we would say the Lord's Prayer, and then lead into all the relatives and everything we were praying for, and
Mhm.
then we'd give thanks to God for something that happened that day. But we never, there was no devotion to the Blessed Mother.
Yeah, it's pretty. Sadly, it's standard.
Yeah, that was
the
that
time,
era.
it was
Yeah,
not really.
right, right.
You know,
I wonder when the Blessed Mother really started taking off.
I think Our Lady of Medjugorje has really developed
Yeah,
a
and the
lot.
other
maybe.
apparition
Yeah.
types too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just now, I think that's way
Yeah.
more. I mean, people always hear about Lourdes and Fatima and stuff.
Yeah, have
but
you been to Medjugorje?
Yeah, yes, I have.
It was great.
Yeah, it was. I was there in 94, 95 when the war was going on, and the State Department was saying not to go. And when I was there, it was the most peaceful place I've ever been. I didn't want to come back.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Why do you think it hasn't been approved as an apparition site?
Politics.
Yeah.
Local politics. I think.
Ecclesiastical politics.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, Bob, tell us a little bit about what it's like being first of all, we'd be interested in your experience. You went through St. Mary of the Lake, right?
Yes.
So tell us what it was like when you were at St. Mary of the Lake. What year did you start there? Oh,
Real-
90s, right?
Yeah, 99 is through. I was ordained in 2003. So, um,
So you were still in an era where like they hadn't um it was kind of a continuation from the 80s, maybe 70s and 80s, because that era that seminary wasn't exactly known for doctrinal strength.
yeah.
Right.
Well, the diaconate formation, I think we were outside it. We weren't in class with the seminarians. We were doing our own, and we had our own teachers, and
Yeah.
so I really couldn't compare what was going on in there.
Were there a lot of seminarians outside of the diaconate program when you were there, or was it a small classes?
There was a number of them.
Yeah. How many were in the diaconate program?
When I graduated, I want to say 32 in my
32.
class.
Wow. So yeah, that's a good number, a really good number.
Yeah, really, it is.
Yeah.
And considering with 4+ years, you're going through doing stuff in the summers too.
Yeah.
So
for those that are out there in our listening audience that are discerning and possibly considering being a deacon, tell us what do you do as a deacon, and why is it fulfilling, and why you enjoy it?
it's what do? You being on the altar, I always call it just being parsley, because that's really not, while we're called to be on the altar, we're actually called to social justice and teaching, and that's, I call it getting your hands dirty in the faith.
Yeah.
so
So
to
we're,
speak, to do the work out with the people. You work even at my job. I'm there. I'm not standing there preaching, but yet I am by who I am and what I expect and
right.
how the business goes. You try to be very above board and everything. And all the electricians.
Yeah.
and-
So let's say you're a deacon and you wind up serving a parish. Do you pick your parish, or does the archdiocese tell you where to go?
So it when it starts out, I start out at St. Peter Damian, and they sponsor you through this. So they
So that was the church that
you start out with, yeah.
and was it by accident you were there, or
No, I'd been there for 20 16 years
Okay.
prior as a parishioner,
got it?
and at that time I was running the RCIA program and multiple things which I continued to do as a deacon,
Right.
and you know so
So what does the deacon do besides, like you said, on the altar
okay, so
and celebrating?
baptisms, we do weddings,
Right, right.
wake services,
Right.
and what I do at Nazareth Academy is a communion service.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
So you got involved with Nazareth Academy. How did that happen?
It's a funny story. Father Ted Schmidt, I was at St. John the Evangelist, and it was the week before Super Bowl Sunday. And I walked into the sacristy and I'd seen the schedule, and I said, boy, Father, I said, you have 7 deacons here, and the one deacon that's really into football is on the altar during the Super Bowl.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
and he looked at me and he said, well, just trade with one of the other deacons. They'll do it for you.
yeah,
And I said, I can't do that.
yeah. You
I
didn't
said,
feel right about it.
It was I said, that would be to me like putting football before God. I just can't do it.
Right.
I'm not upset.
Yes.
I was kind of teasing you because you weren't on the altar.
Yes.
Right. And I showed up Super Bowl Sunday, and Father Ted had changed with the associate pastor, and he was on the altar with me
Wow.
for Super Bowl Sunday.
So
And,
Father Ted's a fascinating figure.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Father Ted and what his impact on your life was.
Well, Father Ted was a type of person that
We're talking about Father Ted
Ted
Schmidt,
Schmidt, yeah.
and he was a late vocation, right? Became a priest around 50, and then
right
was only probably a priest for 20 years before he was
he
called.
passed, right. Yes, he passed away in 2014, shortly after Nazareth won their first championship. But Father Ted, after that, he had said to me, he says, I'm involved in a football ministry. If you'd like to get into it with me, think about it. So I said, yeah, sure, And it turned out that he was doing 2 schools, St. Pat's in the city, and then Nazareth Academy. And he had a tie to each one. St. Pat's, he grew up with Dan Galante, who was the head coach there.
Yeah, I think wasn't he a graduate of St. Pat's, Father Ted?
Yeah,
I think he was.
He might have been, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was friends with Dan
Right.
Galante, was the reason that he's there. And then Father was also the team doctor for Nazareth, Dr. Tom Nelson, was also Father Ted's personal doctor.
Yeah.
And that's how he started getting involved with Nazareth. But he couldn't do both. He was having trouble. And so he got me to begin at Nazareth Academy, and he would come with me when he could, and we would do a mass when he was there. When I'm there, he was communion service. And
Very generous of him to give you the elite program. St. Pat's is fine and all, but they're like a 500 ball club, whereas Naz pretty much steamrolls everybody they play.
It wasn't like that all the time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Coach Racky there has developed such a wonderful
Yeah.
program.
Well, I'm looking at Nazareth Academy, and in the last 10 years, they've won 6 state championships, and they have 2 second-place finishes. So there hasn't been famine there, at least.
No, not at all. Not at all. And my
Yeah.
wife she loves it, but she's always like, I'd like to go see the kids in we have one in Arizona and one in Florida for Thanksgiving.
Right.
And I said, yeah, I can't.
Yeah, exactly. So my 3 boys played football at Carmel Catholic, and I kind of lived vicariously through their playing days. They were all really good players, and It's kind of cool hanging around a high school football
Oh, it
program,
is.
isn't it?
It's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, the players, at least at Nazareth, I mean, it's really a family
Yeah.
environment, and I know a lot of places talk about that, but they really are.
Yeah. Where
It's
did Coach Racky come from?
Driscoll.
Driscoll. He was
Yeah.
at Driscoll Catholic
Yeah.
when they closed.
Right.
So he won state championships there.
He won 4 of them, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot that that's where he came from. What a great coach, though.
Oh.
So I want to ask you a little bit about that. So JJ McCarthy, he's going to be likely going to be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings this year, and he
Mhm.
was a big star at Michigan, and he was a Nazareth kid. What was he like? Did you interact with him?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He was a great kid. Outgoing, very friendly. A lot of times at first, what I would think that this players would be a little, standoffish from clergy, but like I said, this is such a family atmosphere. I mean, JJ, was the leader of the team. I mean, he was very warm. He'd come right up, Deacon Bob, give you a big hug, and his
Yeah.
leadership on the field, it speaks for itself.
Right,
Pretty,
right. I mean, now he's a rock star.
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you tell your when you're watching a game with some buddies or something, you're like, yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. I have a couple grandsons that are like 8 years old, and they're starting to play football and everything. And
Yeah.
Papa knows.
Do you have any autographed pictures with him?
Not JJ, with Julian Love.
I want to ask you about those guys in a second. Some of the other ones,
Yeah.
Julian Love, yeah. So Joliet Dice, is both cook and he was kind of down there on the border of the cook and the Joliet, but our new Holy Father.
Oh, right, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So are you pretty excited about him being a Chicago man? And
Oh yeah, Sox fan too.
yeah, you're a Sox fan,
Oh
huh?
yeah, yeah.
What a miserable ball club the last couple of years, huh?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and I like the fact that he's a baseball fan. He's a normal guy. I don't know what, you know.
the associate at St. Walter's was an Augustinian too, and he knows him personally. And
Yeah.
we were talking about him. And
Yeah.
he said he's a good guy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. So let's talk about some of these Nazareth guys. So you got Tyler Morris, CJ West, Julian Love, and JJ McCarthy all in the NFL. I mean, what is it that this school winds up getting these superstar kids and then develops them even more? I went to Loyola Academy, played at Loyola Academy. We've won 3 straight state titles at 8A. We don't have any kids going in the NFL. There's no Loyola Academy players in the NFL right now.
Well, it started with Julian,
Mhm.
obviously, and he's just a phenomenal. He's not only obviously a great football player, he a phenomenal man.
Yeah,
I mean, he comes back to Naz every year and puts on a camp for the youth, and it's just great.
that's
Now,
awesome.
yeah,
Who's he with right now?
he's with Seattle.
Okay, that's
He
right.
plays for Seattle, and JJ and Tyler, they both went to Michigan together, and
Yeah.
and I'm good. CJ West was just drafted by the 49ers.
Okay.
So he'll be out there.
Yeah, so 49ers, Shanahan, he's a Catholic, and JJ, yeah, so we get a lot of Catholics around the NFL right now.
See, I think, yeah, that's a good thing. But I think Coach Racky, it's just when you meet him,
I've
you're
met him.
drawn
He's
to
a
him.
big personality. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and
Smaller sized guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a big personality and just very charismatic and
yeah, and the one thing that's really I find is that when he says something, he means it.
Yeah.
and he holds to his word,
that's neat.
and he's a very compassionate man, but yet very
Yeah,
strong what you got to do on the field, and
right. Yeah, that's awesome. Just
Yeah.
What's going on there. So these guys they weren't all Catholics when they came in there. Julian Love, Tyler Morris, CJ West, were they?
everybody that of those 4, yeah.
Oh, they're all Catholics.
Yeah. Now there are players there that aren't Catholic, and there are students in the school that don't play football that aren't Catholic.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that really amazed me. Now, that these players, when they come up and they're not Catholic, they come up in
Right.
the community, they come up and they immediately go for a blessing. They
know
they
respect.
respect it, and
Yeah.
that just carried such a
Yeah.
big weight with me that
Yeah.
wow. So I knew that Deborah Tracy and Teresa Hawkins, they had the president and the
Yeah.
principal of the school. They're doing a fine job on that
Right.
end. I had one of one of the kids came to me after the season. He asked me if I knew of any Bible studies,
Yeah.
and he was Catholic, a Bible study in his area. So I looked it up and I gave him the information that I could. Another player asked me, can I want to become Catholic? Where should I go? What should I do? And so
Yeah.
it looks like he'll be entering or doing that this year because it was a little late.
Yeah. Was Coach Racky in the room when JJ McCarthy got drafted?
Oh, yeah.
I think he was. Yeah. So what happens for those of you that aren't huge football fans out there, the NFL draft has become like one of the biggest, things for football fans. Everybody watches it, and they go to the living rooms of the families when the kid gets drafted. There was a big party at JJ's house, and I remember that Coach Racky was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's beautiful. Tell us, football. People, when my kids were playing, it was still big.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, everybody thinks that, you're going to get a concussion in every game and you can't play football anymore. And helicopter moms, as they call them, I'm not going to let my kid play football and what have you. Could you talk about, the fact that that's a little bit overblown in the NFL? They played in the Wild West where the rules really didn't protect heads,
Mm-hmm.
unlike, it does on lower levels. And the fact that football brings a lot of leadership skills and helps mold young men into better Catholics.
Yeah. Was that overblown? I don't know. Really, I know Nazareth went to extents with special helmets and stuff.
Yeah,
that
we did
needed,
too.
And
Yeah, everybody did.
yeah, in the high school level and probably college level, I think that the universities and the high schools need to do as much as they can for these kids to protect them. When they get into the pros, I mean, well, then it's a job. So,
Yeah.
is that on them or is that on the team? If I was a player, I would want to at least keep tabs on everything.
Right. Tell us a little bit about what you do with regards to the Nazareth football team as far as being their chaplain.
Um, well, before every game, we have a communion service. If I can drag Father Burke Masters in, we'll have a mass. When Father Ted was there with me, we would have a mass. But we do a communion service. You know what that is, right? So
I do. Yeah, absolutely. So the
And-
host has been consecrated and then you
Yeah,
do the readings and
yeah, it's just like a mass without the
Yeah.
consecration. And I think one of the most powerful things in there is the sign of peace. And every player, every coach that's there, everybody is giving up everybody a hug. I mean, it takes
yeah.
as long, if not longer, than communion does
Right.
for the sign of peace. But it's a bonding, it's a show of love, affection for each other, and I really think that helps cement the team together as a family.
Yeah.
Primarily, and then we pray before every game and after every game.
Right.
I'm there for the kids. I've talked to numerous kids, family issues or death in the family, and I'm open to them 24/7. And one of the best things I think that happens for me is that I have kids talking to me and saying, "Hey, I can you work this reading? And I think the team needs this," or stuff like that. So the kids participate fully, and it's so fulfilling ministry. And I think one of the big things because I was worried about having credibility with the team,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not there every day as a coach. If I was retired, I'd probably be there a lot more. But the players, I think being on the field with them during the games, with the weather, so they see that you really are investing in them,
Right.
and I think that helps them invest in you and take you as being part of it.
Yeah. Do they share things with you? Like, for example, if there's turmoil in the house or
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not. I mean, not every player has, but
yeah.
there's been a number of them. Yes, and like I said, if there's been deaths in the family and stuff,
Yeah.
and I'll talk to them.
Because Nathers are kids from all over, don't they? There's a pretty big circle of where they're coming from.
Every school in Illinois has a 30-mile radius
Okay.
if they want to play for
Yeah,
sports.
yeah.
Outside of that 30-mile radius, they have to play for the
The local public school.
local public school.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so St. Joe's down there in Westchester closed down. It really,
Yeah.
so now the closest Catholic school alternative you'd have to go into the city, right?
From there, no, Montini is close.
Oh,
to-
Montini
is
Broncos, yeah.
I mean, they're big
Yeah,
rivals.
right.
You
It's in
know.
Lombard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too far, I guess. And maybe Fenwick is not.
Fenwick's not
real
far. It's
Yeah.
it's a little further, but yes,
Yeah.
that's another one.
So I was looking up on the
Wow.
way in, and like I said, I sent my 3 boys to Carmel Catholic, and it's probably the same. But the tuition right now is 17 grand. It's a lot, isn't it? I mean, but
Yeah.
it's a sacrifice, but it's a good one.
You know what? So I talked to my boss and I kept telling him he has to send his 2 younger kids to NAS,
Yeah,
and he ultimately did once
Yeah.
he experienced the environment and went down there. And I told him it's the best investment you're ever going to make because on
Right.
the backside.
yeah. I don't regret it. Carmel Catholic in Mundelein was terrific for my kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place, and I went to Catholic schools. So if you have the money, you should do it. And,
Oh, by all means.
don't be buying a new car. You know what I mean? It's
Right. Make a sacrifice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But it is, realistically, it is a big chunk, and
Some of these guys, the superstars, Nazareth gives scholarships too, right? If kids are in need, don't they? I mean, I don't know Carmel. Loyola does for sure.
everybody has to pay something.
Something, yeah.
I
exactly.
don't know what
how much of a
I don't know who
break
does
they
what.
get, yeah.
Yeah, but it's to be fair and everything.
Right.
Naz is pretty.
Some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So is Coach Racky, are we going to see him on June 7th?
I am not sure.
We hope so. He's
Yeah.
come in the past, and we hope he does. He's
Yeah.
such a wonderful, wonderful man.
Oh yeah.
And so are you, Deacon Bob Esposito. Boy, it's just great being with you. Great talking to you, and so much looking forward to seeing you on June 7th.
Yeah.
What's Naz's the Roadrunners?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know where that came from, but I had a cousin that she's 10 years older than me. She'd be like 71 or 2, and she went to Nazareth when it was an all-girls school.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I think
exactly.
it changed in 77 or
Yeah,
somewhere around that time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah. And then
And they got neat uniforms. They play on a great field. I mean, they
Oh,
really spent
beautiful
some money to
field.
have
Yeah.
the elite program they have.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous field, and their baseball field. They just redid the baseball field.
Yeah, they're good in baseball too. Yeah.
When
Do
have
you want to
kids-
close it? Any final words?
No, I would urge any deacons out there that want to get into this type of ministry. It's wonderful dealing with the high school kids. You reach out, you can and you help them, and not just football ways and bringing New Yorkers, but you can be there when they need you. And
Yeah.
a lot of high
Do you
school.
wear the
kids-
Roman collar when you're out there? Sometimes, yeah.
You know what? I'm not that type of.
Okay. Yeah.
I just
No, I get it.
It's a clergy collar.
Yeah. But
and we all might know it, but the rest of the world looks at it as being a priest collar.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'm like, if I have to do the ministry, like
No, I get it. And
you're
you're not able to give last rites or anything. That's why the
No.
priests are told that they should wear it by. So, but you are representing our church well,
Thank
and tell us what that is
Oh, this is the archdiocese symbol.
with the cross.
The deacon.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for being a deacon. Thank you for what you do for all of us. Would you close us out in prayer, Deacon
Sure.
Bob?
Sure, definitely. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for all the blessings you bestow on all of us in our lives. We humbly ask that you send your spirit upon us. Help us to do your will throughout the world, that we may further your kingdom and honor your mother as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.